The human eye is the only one in the primate world
This
with a
brings us
visible
to a
white
myth
scara
that needs to be
It seems
dismantled
like a small,
once and for
almost
all.
throwaway
The idea
detail
that
of
we
our
conquered
anatomy, nature.
doesn't it?
We
But
didn't
if you were a
conquer it,
hominin
we
standing
cheated.
in the tall
We
grass
used
of the
fire
African
to cheat
savanna
the night.
2 million
We
years
used
ago,
spears to
that
cheat
little
the
patch of
distance,
white was
and we
essentially
used
a
language
neon
to cheat
here
the
I am
limits of
sign.
individual experience.
Most primates have
Every
dark
time we
eyes
encounter
to
a
hide the
story about
direction of their
ancient
gaze
humans,
from predators
we tend to
and
view
rivals.
them as primitive
We,
or lesser
on the other hand,
versions of
evolved
ourselves.
eyes that make it
But the humans who
incredibly
lived
easy for
alongside the
anything watching
short-faced
us
bear
to know
were
exactly
arguably
where we are
much more
looking.
capable than
In
we
a
are
world
today.
ruled by
They
monsters
were running
that
a
could snap a
high-stakes
human femur
biological
like a dry
simulation
twig
every single
we
day
essentially
where a
walked
single
around with a
mistake didn't
flashlight
result in a
pointed
bad
at our
review
own
at work.
faces.
It resulted
It was a
in being
massive
digested.
evolutionary
Their
gamble that should have
primitive
led to our
tools were the
extinction
result
before
of
we
thousands
even
of
learned
years
to
of
sharpen a
R&D
rock.
that would make a
You
modern
have to
tech
wonder why
company
a
blush.
species so
They were
physically
engineers
pathetic,
of survival.
so poorly armored,
If you want to see
and
the
so
evidence
visually
of this
exposed
ancient
didn't
war,
just become
you
a
don't need to go
short-lived
to a
footnote
museum
in the fossil record.
You just need to look
The
at your own
popular
behavior.
version of our history
Why do
usually
we have
starts
an
with us as
instinctive
the
fear
mighty
of
hunter,
the dark?
the
Why does
spear-wielding
the sound
hero
of a
who
rustle in the
dominated the
bushes make
landscape
our
from
heart
day
rate
one.
spike
It's
before
a
we
nice
even
story,
know what it is?
but it's almost
Why are
certainly
we
a
so
lie.
obsessed with
For the vast
true
majority
crime
of our
and
time
stories
on this
of
planet,
monsters?
we weren't the ones
These
doing
are
the
the
hunting.
ghosts of the
We were the
Pleistocene.
ones being hunted.
They are the leftovers
If you looked
of
at
a
the
brain
fossil
that was
record of our
optimized
early
for a world
ancestors,
where something was
specifically
always watching you.
Australopithecus africanus,
We are the descendants
you would
of the
find
people
a
who were
very
the most
depressing
paranoid,
pattern. The most
in the
observant
1920s,
and the most
researcher Raymond
coordinated.
Dart found
The
the
careless
Tom
humans
child,
were
a
eaten
fossilized
a long
skull
time
of a
ago.
young hominin
Every
from
one of your
about
ancestors
2.8
was a
million years
survivor
ago.
of a million-year-long
decades,
elimination
people
tournament,
thought the child had
which
been
brings
killed
us back
by
to
other
that white
hominins.
scara in our
But
eyes.
more recent forensic
Remember how I
analysis,
said it was a
specifically
neon
the
sign
work of Lee
that told
Berger and
predators
Ron
where we
Clark,
were looking?
revealed something
Well,
much more
there is
chilling.
a second half
The
to that
puncture
story.
marks on the skull
While
and
the
the
white
damage
of
to
the
the
eye
made us
sockets
vulnerable to
perfectly
predators.
matched the talons
It
of a
made us
large bird of
incredible
prey,
at cooperating
likely a
with each other.
relative of the modern
Because we can
African
see where
crowned
another
eagle.
human is
Our
looking,
ancestors
we can
weren't just
engage
being
in
eaten by
joint
lions
attention.
and leopards.
They were being
point at a hidden
snatched from the
threat
ground
and know
by
that our
birds.
partner sees
We were
exactly
quite
what we
literally
see.
on the menu for
We can
anything
coordinate
with
a hunt
teeth
or
or claws.
defense with a single
This
glance.
realization forces
The white
us to
of our
confront a
eyes
paradox.
didn't evolve to help
How
us
did a
hide.
creature that
It
started as
evolved to
bird
help us
food
communicate.
end up at the top
We
of the food
traded
chain?
stealth.
The myth
for
of the natural born
cooperation.
killer suggests
We
we used
decided,
our superior brains to
evolutionarily
immediately
speaking,
invent
that it was
weapons.
better to be
But the
seen by our
timeline
friends
doesn't
than to
support
be
that.
hidden from our
There is a
enemies.
massive gap
We
between
bet
the time
everything
we
on the
started
group,
walking upright
and it
and the
worked.
time we actually
It worked
developed
so
effective
well that
hunting
we
tools.
eventually forgot what
During
it
that
felt like to be
million-year
prey,
gap,
which,
we
by
built
the way,
walls,
is a
then
staggeringly
cities,
long
then
time to be
entire
vulnerable.
civilizations
We had to
designed
survive
to keep
using
the
something
outside
other than raw
out.
power
We
or
relegated the
technology.
monsters to
We
movies
were
and
physically
zoos.
slower than
But
almost
that fear
every
is still
predator
there,
we faced,
tucked away
we
in
had
the
no
amygdala,
fangs,
waiting for
our
the power
skin
to
was
go
thin
out or
and
the fire
easily
to go
torn.
cold.
We
spent
by all
millions
accounts,
of years
a
fighting our
biological
way to the
disaster.
top of the pyramid.
Yet we are the
using
ones sitting
every
here
trick,
talking about
every
it,
bluff,
while the giant
and every
hyenas
weapon we
and
could imagine.
saber-toothed cats
We
are
won
gone.
the war.
The
but
way
we
we
are
fought
still
back
carrying
wasn't
the
with a
scars
single
of the
invention,
battle in our
but
DNA.
through a series of
We are the
radical,
prey that
counterintuitive
fought
shifts
back. A
in
species
behavior and
defined not
biology
by its
that turned
strength,
our
but by
greatest
its
weaknesses
refusal
into
to
a
be
form
eaten.
of
It
psychological
is a strange
warfare.
thought, isn't it?
The first way
that
that
your
we fought
entire
back was
existence
simply
is
by
the
standing
result
up.
of a million
We usually
successful
talk about
bluffs.
bipedalism
That you
as
are
a
here
way to
because
travel
a long
long
distances or
vulnerable,
free up our
hairless
hands,
apes
both of which are
decided to
true.
stand up and
But from a
scream at the
predator's
darkness
perspective,
instead of
a
running
human
away.
standing upright
We
is a
often think of
very weird
ourselves
sight.
as the masters
Most
of the planet,
quadrupeds judge
but in
the size
reality,
of an animal
we are
by
just
its
the most
length.
successful
A
group
lion
of
looks at a
survivors in
zebra
history.
and sees a
We
certain
didn't
amount
win
of
because we were
horizontal
the
mass.
strongest. When a
We
human
won
stands
because we
up,
were the most
we
terrified,
suddenly occupy
and
a
we
vertical
used that
space
terror
that
to
doesn't
build a
make
world
sense
where we
to a
didn't have to
predator's
be
brain.
afraid anymore.
We look taller
But the
than we
world we
actually
built
are.
is still relatively
this creates
new.
a moment of
The
hesitation
landscape
in a
of fear
predator's
is
threat
only a
assessment.
few thousand
In
years
the wild,
behind us, which is a
hesitation
blink of
is
an
a survival
eye in
evolutionary
mechanism.
time.
If an animal
Think about
looks
that the next
wrong
time you're
or
alone at
behaves
night
in a
and you
way that
feel
doesn't
that
fit the
sudden,
prey script,
irrational
a predator
urge to check
often
over your
decides
shoulder.
the risk of injury
That
isn't
isn't
worth
worth
the
the
meal.
paranoia. By walking
It's
on
an
two
ancient,
legs, we
inherited
just
memory.
moving differently.
It's your brain reminding you of the deal your
bluff.
ancestors made.
We made ourselves
They
look
gave
like
up the
a much
safety of the
larger,
trees and the
much more
anonymity of
vertical
dark
threat
eyes
than we
so that they
actually
could
were.
look each other
But
in
a
the
bluff
face and
only
stand their
works if you have
ground.
backup.
They chose
This
to be
is where
seen.
our social
They
structures
chose to
became
become
our
our
primary
and they
defensive
chose
weapon.
to fight.
We often
That
think
white
of
scara in your
society
eye
as
as
something we
tiny
created
patch of
for
exposed
comfort,
tissue,
but in the
is the
Pleistocene,
ultimate
the
proof
group
of their
was your
victory.
armor.
It is
Robert
a reminder
Sussman's
that you come
research
from a
in
line
Man
of
the
people
Hunted
who were so
suggests that
confident
early
in their
humans
ability
lived
to
in
protect
much
each other
larger
that they could
groups than we
afford to let the
previously
whole
thought,
world know
specifically
exactly where
as
they
a
were looking.
defense against
So,
predation.
when you look in the
There
mirror
is
tonight,
strength in numbers,
pay attention to
but
those
not for the
eyes.
reason you think.
Notice how
It wasn't
clearly
about
they
having more
broadcast your
people to
focus,
fight a lion.
your intent,
It was about
and your presence
delusion.
to anyone in the room.
In a group of
in
50,
a world of
your
shadows
individual
and predators,
chance of being
that
the one
white
snatched
scara
tonight
is a badge
only
of courage.
2%.
It's
However,
a chilling reminder
there's a
that
more
you are the descendant
layer
of the
here.
only
A
animal
group
that
of 20
dared to be
humans
visible.
screaming,
You
waving
are the
branches,
apex of a
and
lineage
throwing
that turned the
rocks
prey
creates a
script
sensory
upside
overload
down
for a
and left the
predator.
monsters with
Most
nothing
large
to hunt.
cats,
Just
like
remember,
the extinct
those eyes were
a
designed
smaller
to spot the
relative of the
leopard in the
saber-toothed,
grass before
were
it
ambush
pounced.
specialists.
And if you still
They
feel
relied
like
on a
something is
quick,
watching you from the
silent
dark,
kill.
it's
If they
probably
missed
because
that initial
for 2
window
million
because a
years,
dozen humans
something
started
was.
making a deafening
Does that
racket,
make you feel
the
safer,
cost of the
or
hunt
does it make the room
skyrocketed.
feel a little bit
The predator
colder?
would move
Either
on
way,
to find
you're
a
still
solitary
here,
gazelle
and
that
didn't have
in
20
itself
friends
is the
throwing
most
heavy stones
terrifying
at its
thing
head.
of all to the
We see
creatures that
this
used to
survival
own the night.
strategy in the fossils at Swartkrans Cave in South Africa. Scientists found the remains of dozens of early humans alongside the bones of leopards and giant hyenas. For a long time, researchers assumed the humans were the hunters. But Bob Brain, a famous taphonomist, spent years studying the way bones break and decay. He realized that the puncture marks on the hominin skulls matched the lower canines of a leopard perfectly. The humans weren't the residents of the cave, they were the leftovers brought in by leopards. This sounds like a defeat, but the layers of the cave tell a story of escalating resistance. Over time, the number of human remains drops, while the evidence of fire and stone tools increases. We didn't just leave the caves, we learned how to make the caves uninhabitable for anything that wasn't us. Fire is the obvious game changer, but we often misunderstand how it was used as a weapon. It wasn't just about sitting around a campfire for warmth. Fire was the first piece of active technology that allowed us to reshape the environment to our advantage. At the Wonderwork Cave, researchers found evidence of controlled fire dating back 1,000,000 years. Think about what that fire meant to a predator. For a lion or a hyena, the world is divided into day and night. Night belongs to them. They have the tapetum lucidum in their eyes that reflects light and allows them to see in the dark. We have nothing. Without fire, we were blind targets for 12 hours out of every 24. Fire didn't just give us light, it effectively stole the night back from the predators. It created a zone of exclusion. Animals have an instinctive, deep-seated fear of fire because fire is unpredictable and lethal. By mastering it, humans became the only animal on the planet that could create a localized danger zone that no other predator dared to enter. There is a fascinating theory that fire did something even more profound than just scaring animals away. It actually changed the landscape of fear. This is an ecological term describing how predators influence the movement of prey. If there's a wolf in the valley, the deer stay on the ridges. For millions of years, humans lived in a landscape of fear dominated by big cats. But once we had fire and coordinated group defense, the predators began to fear us. We started to occupy the best water holes and the most fertile valleys because we could defend them. We effectively pushed the predators to the margins. We didn't have to kill every lion to win the war. We just had to make it so that being near humans was consistently painful and terrifying for the lions. Over thousands of generations, this actually selected for predators that were more cautious and stayed further away from human settlements. We were accidentally domesticating the wild through terror. Of course, the psychological warfare was eventually backed up by genuine lethality. The transition from the hunted to the hunter happened when we broke the rule of proximity. In the animal kingdom, if you want to kill something, you generally have to put your face right next to the thing you're trying to kill. This is incredibly dangerous. A lion has to get close enough to bite the throat of a buffalo, which puts the lion in range of the buffalo's horns. Humans, however, invented the concept of ranged damage. It started with the simple act of throwing a rock. We are the only species on Earth that can throw objects with both high speed and incredible accuracy. This is due to a specific arrangement of our shoulder, neck, and torso muscles that evolved around 2 million years ago. A chimp can throw a rock, but it has no aim and no power. A human can hit a moving target from 30 feet away. And if you've ever seen a professional pitcher, you know how much force we can actually generate. Throwing a rock might not seem like much against a cave lion, but imagine being that lion. You are used to prey that either runs away or tries to kick you. Suddenly, you're being pelted by hard objects from a distance. Each hit causes pain and potential injury, but you can't reach the thing that's hurting you without sprinting across open ground while more rocks fly at your face. It's a fundamental break in the logic of nature. This escalated into the development of the spear. The Skåningen spears, found in Germany and dating back about 300,000 years, are masterpieces of engineering. They aren't just sharpened sticks, they are weighted like modern javelins with the center of gravity placed to ensure a stable flight. These spears allowed our ancestors, specifically Homo heidelbergensis, to engage predators and prey from a distance of 20 or 30 feet. Then came the atlatl or spear thrower. This is essentially a lever that extends the length of the human arm. By using an atlatl, a human can launch a light spear with enough force to penetrate the hide of a mammoth or the skull of a bear. With this tool, the proximity rule was completely shattered. A group of humans with atlatls could stand in a line and rain down lethal projectiles on a predator before it even realized it was in a fight. We went from being the easiest meal on the savannah to being the most dangerous thing in the world. Predators that had spent millions of years evolving to be the top of the food chain had absolutely no defense against a creature that could kill them from 50 yards away. They didn't even have a behavioral concept for it. To a saber-toothed cat, a human 50 yards away wasn't a threat, it was just a distant shape. By the time that shape launched a spear, it was too late. But even with spears and fire, there was another, more subtle weapon in our arsenal: tracking. This is essentially the ability to read the past and predict the future. When a human looks at a footprint in the mud, they aren't just seeing a shape. They are seeing a story. They can tell how long ago the animal passed, how heavy it was, if it was hungry, if it was injured, and where it was likely going. This is a form of displaced intelligence that no other animal possesses. A leopard is a genius at the ambush, but it only knows what it can see, smell, or hear right now. A human tracker knows that a leopard is likely resting in a specific grove of trees 3 miles away because they saw its tracks heading that direction an hour ago. We used our brains to create a mental map of the predators around us. This allowed us to practice proactive avoidance. The best way to survive a fight with a predator is to never be in the fight in the first place. We didn't just fight them with muscles, we fought them with information. This leads us to a wow fact that most people never consider. We didn't just survive the predators, we eventually began to use them as biological weapons against other predators. The domestication of the wolf wasn't just about having a companion for hunting rabbits. It was a massive strategic alliance. Wolves, and later, dogs, have the sensory equipment we lack: incredible smell and hearing, and the ability to see much better in the dark. By bringing wolves into the human circle, we effectively added a radar system to our camps. A dog can detect a stalking leopard long before a human can. The combination of human-ranged weaponry and canine early warning systems was the final nail in the coffin for the age of the megapredator. We had successfully outsourced our greatest physical weaknesses to another species. However, there is a darker side to this victory. As we became more efficient at fighting and avoiding predators, we didn't just achieve a balance with them. We triggered a global collapse of the predator guild. This is the big reveal of our history. The landscape of fear didn't just shift, it shattered. Between 50,000 and 10,000 years ago, as modern Homo sapiens spread across the globe, the giant predators began to vanish. In North America, we lost the short-faced bear, the American lion, and the saber-toothed cats. In Australia, the giant monitor lizards and marsupial lions disappeared. While climate change played a role, the human factor is undeniable. We didn't necessarily hunt all of these predators to extinction. Instead, we outcompete them. We were so good at avoiding being eaten, and so good at hunting the same prey animals they relied on, that the big cats and bears simply starved. We didn't just kill the monsters, we took their jobs. But here is the truly counterintuitive part. By winning the war against predators, we may have accidentally changed our own biology in ways that still affect us today. There is a concept called self-domestication. As we lived in larger, more cooperative groups to defend against predators, we had to become less aggressive toward each other. The alpha male style of social organization that works for chimpanzees didn't work for humans who needed to stand shoulder to shoulder against a cave lion. We began to select 4 pro-social traits: cooperation, empathy, and communication. The very things that make us human are, in a very real sense, a byproduct of the fear we felt 2 million years ago. We are a kind species, relatively speaking, because we had to be kind to each other to survive the things that wanted to eat us. Our morality was forged in the shadow of a predator's jaw. Do you think we've truly moved past our prey instincts, or are we just better at hiding them in the modern world? I'd love to hear your thoughts on how this ancient landscape of fear still shapes your life today. Drop a comment and let's talk about the shadows. If you want to dive deeper into the hidden history of our species, consider subscribing to join us for the next investigation. After all, it's always better to be part of the group when the sun goes down. Stay curious, stay observant, and never forget why your eyes have that little patch of white. It's so your friends can see you even when the monsters are watching.